So I keep saying, game this, game that, without ever explaining what I actually mean. What that means to me for now is to make a fighting game. Which, of course, I've never had to make one, and I've barely even tried to play one. And for some reason, I thought the best way to learn how to play one would be to make one. Because in order to make a good fighting game, I'd have to play it. But why did I pick a fighting game specifically? I think it boils down to two reasons. One, I always kind of liked the designs that they had. And the other reason, I've always been intrigued by the depth of the very specific inputs in order to have your character do different moves. It always seems so daunting to learn everything at once. So one day I thought, well, what if each move was like its own card, where each move was taught slowly over time on their own. So of course, something like a tutorial would be able to accomplish that, but that means that there's a lot of time spent up front before you can get to the most engaging part of a fighting game, which is getting to try out the moves on other players. That's why I decided to make a story mode instead. Because in a tutorial, practicing in a vacuum, you start here, and as soon as you try to take what you learn into fighting other players, you hit a wall of increased difficulty. But with a story, you could start out with lower intensity enemies that gradually get more challenging until they're closer to that high skill ceiling of real players. But of course I'm aware that there are pitfalls trying to mix an RPG and a fighting game. As one is typically better for story, while fighting games are typically better at intensity. And RPGs are especially well known for the sheer number of fights you get into, while fighting games are about the depth of the fights. And then, of course, one is better for a single player, and the other is better for multiple players, which puts these things at odds. So my next step then, before I worry about trying to make a story, is to just figure out, how do I even make a fighting game? My first step in that process will be researching programs like M.U.G.E.N, and 2D Fighter second, until I have a better idea. I just want to make a good fighting game